here's Tyrion, once again a prisoner, getting himself out of a sticky situation. Makes you really fall in love with him. And Bronn, oh my god, Bronn, such a good character. This dream is such an interesting sequence where you get hints of history. He dreamt an old dream of 3 knights in white cloaks, in a tower long fallen, and Lyanna in her bed of blood. Here's Catelyn. It's so funny to see Tyrion get out of this situation and Bronn giving his snide comment to Lysa, and then to basically have Lysa say, "Oh, I'm gonna release you into the wild lands of the Vale." And you know from previous chapters just how perilous that journey is. It's a great way to end the chapter and say, "I believe you know the way." And the reader knows the way, and you're like, "You're fucked, Tyrion. You're fucked." And here's Jon. Sir Hauser again being a total dick. And Chet is, he comes back later and you see what a terrible person he is, but here, even now, you just feel like, come on, Chet, what you doing? Why you being like that? But you understand he wants to keep his position, his comfy position, but, you know, you fall in love with Sam so much, you're like, come on, Chad, just give up your job, give it to Sam. And here's Tyrion. To see him kind of reflect on his past, you really understand Tyrion in this chapter, and when he talks about his first love and his only real love, it's pretty touching, and it comes back later in such a powerful way. It's so good to see Tyrion weasel his way out of this one. It makes you really admire his intelligence. And here's Eddard. This is where things get so intense because war is starting and you get an introduction to Beric Dondarrion. And you get this foreshadowing with Sir Ilyn. And that interaction with him and Ned is just chilling when you know what's about to happen. He does so love his work. Ooh. And here's Sansa. I think this is the chapter that makes people really hate Sansa, but again, I think it's so truthful to the sibling relationship and just a daughter who's naive. He's not the least bit like that old drunken king, she screamed at her sister, forgetting herself in her grief. Father looked at her strangely. Gods, he swore softly, out of the mouth of babes. In this chapter between him and Cersei, again, when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. There is no middle ground. The fact that Cersei tries to seduce Ned here is so funny to me. It's like, do you understand what type of man Ned is? Don't even try that, Cersei. Like, what are you doing? And Daenerys here. God, and you see Viserys die here. It's so cold, it's so... I mean, I think when you first read it, it's kind of delicious because you hate Viserys so much, but I think on reread you understand he's just a kid, like a lost soul. And it's kind of tragic what happens to him, even though he really asks for it and he somewhat gets what's coming to him. It's he never had a home really, like he really lost everything, and he's so bitter and full of hate at such a young age. It's a tragedy. But you also understand why Daenerys kind of feels nothing in that moment. She's so numb to the pain that he caused her, and she becomes numb to him as a person. He was no dragon, Dany thought, curiously calm. Fire cannot kill a dragon. Then Robert dying. I remember reading this chapter and it felt like so haunting when Ned is walking towards Robert, and the stillness of the night is so palpable, and you can feel the weight of everyone scrambling and scheming and trying to make moves. And you can't trust anyone. And here's Jon again, battling it out with Sir Alistair. Gods, Tywin muttered, that's a hand. And you can just hear the TV music going dun 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 dun. Like, it's just so dramatic. Every end of the chapter in this book is so gripping. You can tell he used to be a television writer. And then Eddard here. The ending of this is so shocking when he gets double-crossed and you feel the weight. You feel the tension growing. And it's so shocking when he gets betrayed at the end of here. And you really hate Joffrey at this point. It's like, oh my god. Liar. Joffrey screamed, his face reddening. He's always so red, this kid. And then Littlefinger's line at the end. As men died around him, Littlefinger slid Ned's dagger from its sheath and shoved it up under his chin. His smile was apologetic. I did warn you not to trust me, you know. So good. And then Arya, her whole dance with Syria was so heartbreaking, but so dramatic, and to see her running away and to have her first kill and stick with the pointy end. It's, yeah, one of the all-time great chapters in the series, I think. And I think another chapter where people hate Sansa because she somewhat betrays the Starks. But at the same time, I understand she's just a little girl and she was manipulated by Cersei and Joffrey, and I feel like it's so tragic how she's so exploited and she really has to grow up at such a young age. But again, it's lines like this that make you hate Sansa, because she's like, it was not until later that night, as she was drifting off to sleep, that Sansa realized she had forgotten to ask about her sister. It's like, Sansa, come on, that's your sister. But again, you understand why. They're just fighting siblings, and I feel like he captured that innocent young girl like mentality, psychology really well. And Jon here. This is where things get really creepy and really weird, and that bird is so annoying, and corn, 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 and it's such a creepy, almost horror novel it becomes in the North chapters. I think that's another strength of the series, is that it kind of switches between a crime mystery with the Ned stuff, and then it switches to a horror film with the Bran and Jon stuff, and it has elements of fantasy, crime, mystery, romance. There's so much dimension to this whole series. War, poverty, power. It's such a thrilling series to read. And here's Bran. And you really start to respect Robb again. You see how he grows up and becomes a leader. And he brings everyone to arms. And it gives you so much excitement to see what happens next. And I feel like this is the first time that Daenerys really starts to take initiative in getting what she wants, which is the Iron Throne and going home. I think the previous chapter she got her first taste of violence, and now she's going further with it, with Khal Drogo. And Catelyn here. And this, of course, is the chapter where they set off and Catelyn finally reunites with Robb. And you're anticipating more. It's so exciting to see things spring into action with the war. And Tyrion here. He finally meets Tywin, and we get introduced to Tywin. And that's exciting. And Sansa, you see, is being so brutally punished. You see Joffrey being an asshole to Barristan, which is sad to see. you see Sansa take action. And oh my god, we haven't seen Eddard for a while, and to see him again is such a great chapter, and you get to know more about Varys's motivations. And I love that line that Ned says, where he's basically saying, I'm a warrior, you know. Now Catelyn. And you know, that Ned chapter is also a reminder of what's at stake here when Catelyn, in the next chapter, is bargaining with Walder Frey. And oh my god, Walder Frey is so deliciously slimy in this chapter as well. It's so much build up to this point, you know. It makes you so, it's a real page turner because you're flipping and flipping to see the end result. And now you see Jon wrestling with whether he wants to join the war or not. And that kind of internal struggle is interesting to see. And of course, you get to know Aemon Targaryen more, what his whole history is. And Daenerys here is finally seeing the consequences of what a war could be. Oh my god, this battle with Tyrion is such a nail biter. You get to see some of the strategy of Tywin, but also the bravery of Tyrion and how much he's actually a warrior, because at this point, I think you see more of his cunning, but this is the first time where you really see him. And you see him fight before, but I think Tyrion here shows that he really is a warrior to be reckoned with. And Catelyn here, I think, is, and this chapter is also famous, the Battle of Whispering Wood. Seeing Sir Brendan's actions here and Robb, and I love how you can feel the horror of Robb's, like he's forever changed in this chapter, and I think that's something that's missing a bit in the show. You really feel like Robb grew up after this battle and he left it traumatized. He doesn't even know whose blood is on him. Thought that was really well done. And Daenerys, this is where things get real freaky and it becomes a horror film with Daenerys. And the magic is so intense. It's such an intense chapter here. There's so much suspense going on. I love this Daenerys chapter right here. And here's Arya. I think this chapter is also super famous with Ned dying. I think Ned dying is, top 10 most iconic moments in the whole series. And the fact that it's written from the perspective of his daughter Arya, it's pretty gut-wrenching. And I think you see a lot of people growing up in these last few chapters, especially the Starks. It's kind of a coming of age book, I would say. And here you have Bran reacting to the news. Pretty well done. It's kind of creepy how there's like some predicting of the future here and how they have some connection to it. And Sansa, again, the grief is so well done, like it's so well told. And I think this is the chapter where you start to really sympathize with Sansa. She's just going through so much torment. I feel like it's hard not to sympathize with her. And this chapter is so heartbreaking when Dany basically loses everything. I think all these last chapters are some of my favorites because it's the climax and the conclusion of so many storylines and so well told. Yeah, Tyrion here. It's so satisfying to see Tywin frustrated and having failed this old man who is so full of himself and is thwarted by a young teenager, really outsmarted. And that's satisfying. It's a good contrast to Ned's death. And here, I think Jon's last chapter is really exciting. I think Jon's storylines overall in this book are a little on the slower side until the second half. But I really love this last chapter. This last chapter makes you excited for book 2 with Jon. And Catelyn. Again, this last chapter makes you so excited for the next book, and it fills you with so much hope. It's so inspiring. The King of the North, the King in the North, the King in the North again. The all caps, just you can feel the excitement and the energy, and you really want it to be a victory for them from here on out, but alas, it's not the case. And of course, Daenerys' last chapter is bone-chilling, that last line. The other two pulled away from her breasts and added their voices to the call, translucent wings unfolding and stirring the air, and for the first time in hundreds of years, the night came alive with the music of dragons. Great way to end the book. That's a Game of Thrones. I'd say it's my second favorite in the series. I think A Storm of Swords is a little bit better. But what I love about this book is the foreshadowing, and it's full of details, and it introduces the characters so well. It makes you really care about them. It's full of mystery and intrigue, and it teases so much to come. If you want to see more, please comment, like, and subscribe. And look out for part 2, where I'm gonna talk about A Clash of Kings. And subscribe to my Patreon if you want to further support me continuing to make these videos. And thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.